What does it take to stand firm? When your world is taken from you, when your name is changed, your language replaced, your God mocked, and your life threatened. This is not just a story about lions and dreams. This is the story of Daniel, a young man taken captive, who refused to let captivity take his faith. This is a story of pressure, of power, of prayer, and of a God who rules over kings. Daniel's story begins with loss. Jerusalem had fallen. The Babylonians invaded Judah and carried away the best and brightest young men into exile. Daniel was one of them. He was taken from his home, from his culture, from everything familiar. In Babylon, King Nebuchadnezzar ordered that these young captives be trained in the ways of the empire. New language, new education, new identity. Even their names were changed. Daniel, which meant God is my judge, was renamed Belteshazzar, honoring a Babylonian god. But here is the first lesson of Daniel's life. They changed his name, but they could not change his heart. The king assigned them royal food and wine, food offered to idols and forbidden by goddess law. To refuse was dangerous. Disobedience could mean death. But Daniel made a decision that would define his life. Daniel resolved in his heart that he would not defile himself. He didn't protest loudly. He didn't rebel violently. He asked respectfully for permission to eat vegetables and drink water instead. 10 days later, Daniel and his friends looked healthier, stronger, and sharper than all the others. And God honored their faith. Small acts of obedience prepare you for big tests of faith. One night, King Nebuchadnezzar had a dream so terrifying that it robbed him of sleep. He demanded that his wise men tell him both the dream and its meaning. They couldn't. The king was furious. He ordered the execution of all the wise men, including Daniel. Facing death, Daniel did something powerful. He prayed. He gathered his friends and cried out to God for mercy. That night, God revealed the dream to Daniel. Daniel stood before the king and said, "No wise man can explain this, but there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries." The dream foretold the rise and fall of kingdoms: Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, Rome, and God's eternal kingdom above them all. The king fell to his knees. Daniel was promoted. When God gives you wisdom, it's not to glorify you, it's to reveal his power. Though Daniel isn't mentioned here, his story is inseparable from his friends. The king built a massive golden statue and commanded everyone to bow. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, they refused. Threatened with fire, they declared, "Our God is able to save us. But even if he does not, we will not bow." They were thrown into the furnace, but the fire did not consume them. A fourth figure appeared, glowing, divine, and they walked out untouched. Faith doesn't always keep you out of the fire. Sometimes it reveals God in the fire. Years later, Nebuchadnezzar boasted, "Is this not Babylon the Great that I have built?" Immediately, God humbled him. He lost his sanity, lived like an animal, ate grass, until he acknowledged that God rules over all kingdoms. When his sanity returned, the king praised the God of heaven. Daniel witnessed it all. God can use your consistency to transform even the proudest hearts. A new king arose, Belshazzar. During a drunken feast, he used sacred vessels from God's temple to mock heaven. Suddenly, a hand appeared, writing on the wall. No one could understand it. Daniel was summoned. He interpreted the words, "You have been weighed and found wanting." That very night, Belshazzar was killed. The Babylonian Empire fell. God's patience has limits, and power without humility always collapses. Now, an old man, Daniel served under King Darius. Because of his integrity, enemies plotted against him. They passed a law. Anyone who prayed to any god except the king would be thrown into the lion's den. Daniel knew the law, and he prayed anyway, 3 times a day. Windows open, no compromise. He was arrested. The king, distressed, ordered Daniel thrown into the den. That night, God shut the lions' mouths. At dawn, Daniel was lifted out, unharmed. His accusers were thrown in and destroyed. Prayer is not a backup plan. It is Daniel's first response. Daniel never led an army, never ruled a nation. Yet his faith outlasted empires. He lived through multiple kings, multiple regimes, multiple threats. But one thing never changed: his loyalty to God. Daniel shows us that you can live in a corrupt world and stay pure. You can serve earthly kings without betraying heaven. You can face death without fear when God is your foundation. Empires rise and fall, but faith anchored in God stands forever.